The most dangerous form of loneliness is not being alone. It's being surrounded by people while performing a version of yourself that none of them would recognize if they saw you on a Sunday afternoon at home. No audience, no mask, no script. Just you, sitting in silence, wondering why a room full of friends still feels like an empty house. This is the loneliness nobody talks about. Not the kind that comes from isolation, the kind that comes from connection that doesn't connect. From conversations that never go deeper than the surface. From being liked by many and known by none. And here's the part that will make you uncomfortable. The fear of being alone is not really a fear of being alone. It's a fear of what happens when the noise stops and you're forced to meet the only person you've been avoiding your entire life. Yourself. Let me show you what I mean. Think about the last time you were truly alone. Not alone with your phone. Not alone with a show playing in the background. Not alone while scrolling through other people's lives. Truly alone, in silence, with nothing between you and your own thoughts. How long did it last before you reached for something? A screen, a message, a distraction, anything to fill the space. Most people can't sit with themselves for more than a few minutes without feeling a pull toward noise. And that pull is not boredom, it's fear. The fear that silence will show you something you're not ready to see. Because silence is not empty. Silence is where everything you've been suppressing lives. The doubts, the regrets, the questions you keep postponing, the grief you never finished, the version of yourself you abandoned to become acceptable. Silence holds all of it. And the moment the world goes quiet, those things start speaking. That's why some people always need background noise. That's why some people sleep with the television on. That's why some people text someone the second they feel even a hint of stillness. They're not seeking connection. They're fleeing from confrontation. The confrontation with what lives inside them when there's no one else to perform for. And this is where it gets interesting. Because we live in an era that has made it almost impossible to be alone. You are reachable at every second. Notifications arrive around the clock. Social media gives you the illusion of company without the substance of it. You can spend an entire day interacting with hundreds of people online and go to bed feeling more isolated than if you had spoken to no one. Studies in 2026 confirm something remarkable. The loneliest people are not the ones sitting in empty rooms. They are the ones with full calendars, active group chats, and hundreds of followers. They report constant social interaction that still fails to produce closeness. They describe connection that feels thin despite proximity. They are surrounded, and they are starving. This is because there's a difference between being alone and being lonely that most people never examine. And understanding that difference might be the most important psychological insight of your life. Being alone is a physical state. It means no one else is in the room. That's it. It carries no emotional weight by itself. A monk in a monastery is alone. A writer in a cabin is alone. A person walking through a forest at dawn is alone. And none of them are suffering. Some of them are experiencing the deepest peace they've ever known. Solitude is the art of being alone without being lonely. It's the ability to sit with yourself and feel complete. To not need another person to fill a silence that doesn't need filling. Solitude is what happens when you've made peace with your own company. When the thoughts that rise in the quiet don't terrify you. When you can look inward and not flinch at what you find. But loneliness is something else entirely. Loneliness is the gap between the connection you have and the connection you need. And that gap can exist whether you're alone in a room or standing in the middle of a crowd. Loneliness is not about the number of people around you. It's about whether any of them actually see you. And this is where the fear begins. Because most people who are afraid of being alone are not actually afraid of the absence of people. They're afraid of what the absence reveals. When no one is watching, when no one is responding, when no one is validating, who are you? What is left of you when you strip away the roles? The employee, the partner, the parent, the friend, the follower, the performer. Take all of that away. What remains? For some people, the answer is terrifying, because what remains feels like nothing. Not because they are nothing, but because they were never given the chance to discover who they are, outside of other people's expectations. Think about how this starts. A child who is constantly surrounded by family never learns to sit with themselves. A teenager whose identity is built entirely on peer approval never develops an internal compass. A young adult who jumps from relationship to relationship never faces the space between. And by the time they're 30 or 35, solitude doesn't feel like freedom. It feels like freefall. They fill every gap. Every breakup is immediately followed by a new relationship. Every quiet evening is interrupted by a plan. Every moment of stillness is drowned with stimulation, not because they love being social, but because being social is the only way they know how to feel real. Other people become mirrors, and without those mirrors, they can't see themselves. This is the core of the fear. It's not the fear of an empty room. It's the fear of an empty self. The suspicion that without an audience, you disappear. That you only exist in the reflection of others. And the terrifying possibility that if everyone left, there would be nothing remaining worth knowing. But here's what the research actually shows, and this is important. People who hold positive beliefs about being alone don't just tolerate solitude. They actually feel more content after spending time alone. Across 9 countries, from Brazil to Japan to the United Kingdom, the same finding emerged. The way you think about being alone determines whether it destroys you or restores you. It's not the solitude that hurts. It's the story you tell yourself about what solitude means, creating pain by being alone. You're finally allowing, if your story is, "I'm alone because nobody wants me," solitude becomes a prison. If your story is, "I'm alone because I'm choosing to understand myself," solitude becomes a sanctuary. And the people who fear being alone the most are almost always carrying a story that was written for them, not by them. A story that says, your worth is measured by who is in the room with you. That you are only as valuable as the attention you receive. That silence means abandonment. That if you sit still long enough, the truth about your inadequacy will become undeniable. But those are not truths. Those are wounds disguised as beliefs. And they were planted by someone who didn't know how to be alone either. The parent who couldn't sit in silence and filled every room with noise or conflict. The friend group that punished withdrawal with exclusion. The culture that treats being single as a problem to solve. The social media algorithm that rewards performance and punishes absence. You didn't develop this fear in a vacuum. You were trained into it by a world that profits from your inability to be still. And here's the paradox nobody warns you about. The person who can't be alone will never be truly present with anyone else. Because if you need other people to escape yourself, you're not connecting with them. You're using them, not maliciously, not consciously. But the dynamic is the same. They become medication. Their presence numbs a pain that only you can heal. And the moment they leave, the pain returns worse than before, because now it carries an added layer, the fear that they won't come back. This is why some people cling, why some people monitor every message, why some people interpret a late reply as rejection, why some people feel abandoned when their partner simply needs an evening alone. The fear of being alone hijacks every relationship and turns connection into dependency. And dependency is not love, it's survival. So how do you break this pattern? Not by forcing yourself into isolation, not by pretending you don't need people. Humans are wired for connection, and that need is real and healthy. But there's a difference between wanting connection and needing someone to prove you exist. The break happens when you begin to sit with the silence instead of running from it. 5 minutes, then 10, then an hour, without a phone, without a screen, without a plan. Just you and whatever rises, and what rises will be uncomfortable at first. Maybe grief, maybe anger, maybe a sadness you've been carrying since you were 12. Let it come. Because everything that surfaces in the silence is something that was already there. You're not yourself to feel what was always underneath the noise. And something remarkable happens when you stop running. The silence that once terrified you begins to feel like home. The thoughts that once overwhelmed you become familiar. The self that once felt empty starts to fill with something that no other person could have given you. A relationship with yourself. That relationship is the foundation of everything. Every friendship, every partnership, every connection you will ever have is only as deep as the connection you have with yourself. If you can't sit with yourself, you'll never be fully present with another person. You'll always be performing, always managing, always keeping one eye on the exit in case the silence returns. But if you learn to be alone without being lonely, something shifts. You stop entering relationships out of fear and start entering them out of choice. You stop clinging and start connecting. You stop performing and start being. And the people around you feel the difference. Because there is nothing more magnetic than a person who doesn't need you to complete them, but chooses to be with you anyway. The fear of being alone is one of the most universal human experiences. Nearly 3 in 5 Americans say that no one truly knows them. That statistic should break your heart. Not because people are isolated, but because people are surrounded and still unseen. And maybe the answer isn't more connection. Maybe the answer is better connection. Starting with the one connection most people neglect entirely. The connection with themselves. Because the truth about the fear of being alone is this: you were never afraid of the empty room. You were afraid of who you'd find sitting in it. And the most courageous thing you will ever do is stay long enough to meet them. Now, I want to ask you something. And I want you to be honest. Not for anyone else. For you. When was the last time you were truly alone, in silence, with no distractions? And what came up that made you reach for your phone? That thing, whatever it was, is what this video was really about. Drop it in the comments. You might be surprised how many people are carrying the exact same silence. Before you scroll, ask yourself one thing. When was the last time you felt truly seen? Not liked, not followed, seen. Now, tell me one of these 3 things in the comments. 1. What is the sentence your loneliness repeats when the room goes quiet? 2. Have you ever been surrounded by people and still felt invisible? Or 3. What do you do to avoid being alone with yourself? I read every comment on this channel, and I will reply to yours, because the next video might come from something you write below. If this put words to something you've carried in silence, Subscribe, not for me, for the version of you that deserves to be heard.